When you dare to share, you break the silence. When you dare to share, you speak your truth. When you dare to share, you use the full strength of your voice. When you dare to share, it brings opportunity to own your story. So tell it, be heard, and at the same time, your sharing is someone else's learning, inspiration, motivation, empowerment, and hope. There's always an element to each of our stories that remains a secret. For some, we feel it's a dirty little secret. Dare to share your untold story exposes these secrets in a welcoming and positive way. I encourage each of you out there to dare yourself to share what is yours to tell. When we dare, it is the courage to do something really important. Let this be a vow to each and every single one of us that we take risk, we brave, confront, and face what is, while inspiring and empowering all communities. So let's break that silence and tap into mental beauty. This is Salima Jadavji, your podcast host, a practicing social worker, and your mental wellness connoisseur. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast, episode number 71, Untangling Beauty from the Fear-Webbed Chaos. To all my fellow listeners, before we get started, I'm just dropping in a note to give you a heads up that this podcast might be emotionally triggering for you. We do invite guests onto the show who share openly about extremely difficult life moments with exposure and impact of what the struggles have been like. The intensity of each episode could have a variable impact on your emotional and mental well-being based on your own personal story. If at any point the topic becomes uncomfortable or upsetting to you in any way, please do not pressure yourself to listen. Instead, be kind to yourself, do some self-care, and perhaps give another episode a try. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our courageous and daring guest, Garcia Hansen Francis. Garcia is a certified payroll manager with over 20 years experience in payroll, QuickBooks Pro Advisor, certification in business writing, and several accounting certificates. A founding member of Immigrant Women in Business, CEO of CatchPro Payroll Solutions, and winner of the People's Choice Awards Accountant category 2 years in a row. CatchPro Payroll Solutions offer virtual payroll services to small, medium, and large-sized clients, as well as customized accounting solutions and partnered human resource services. Garcia's strong attention to detail and passion for customer satisfaction and success has enabled the team and her to form a strong connection within the industry. She also runs CatchPro Virtual Tax Clinic, through which she prepares tax returns for underprivileged populations such as seniors, immigrants, students, incarcerated individuals, and single families, to name a few. Garcia ensures the support of female entrepreneurs, mentors new business owners, and recruits female volunteers looking to gain expertise in the field. She has great work ethic, good gut instincts, and a polite nature of how she engages. She is assertive, result-oriented, and excels in planning and implementation. Well, hello, Garcia. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast.
Thank you so much. And once again, thank you for having me. This is a pleasure to be here with you today.
Pleasure for you, excitement for me. I am excited to have this opportunity with you. Mm-hmm. I'm most grateful for your willingness to tell your story. I do feel blessed and honored to encounter guests such as yourself who allow me to tap into their vulnerabilities and draw on their strength and draw on their insight and inspiration. And all of the stories that get shared into this space, it means a lot to me. And it's so important that we take a stance together to help break barriers of mental stigma.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Garcia, in case you're still wondering, the podcast is all about bringing forward untold stories that people go through, whether it's directly about a mental health struggle or something else. And one thing we know is that no matter what the story, there is impact on one's own mental health in some way, which typically remains tucked away. And so this platform serves in a way to break barriers of mental stigma that have been conditioned in our society. So today, together, my hopeful mission is that we encourage people to share and tell what individuals typically have reservation to express. And of course, I continue to bring forward a trend, and it's called the mental beauty rethink. Garcia, I'm curious about your take on this. Please tell me what comes to mind first when you hear these words, the mental beauty rethink.
Wow. When I hear about the mental beauty rethink, what really comes to mind is that when I am consistent about my emotional well-being, I feel good inside. I feel great, and it gives me the ability to do more. That's what comes to mind.
Mm, okay. And and so you kind of feel like a balance when you're
Yes,
in check with yourself.
absolutely.
And so then would you say that that balance allows you to feel the beauty of it?
Having that balance allows you to create and do more things, but also when you do it, you're excited about it, you're happy about it. So the balance is very important.
Mm, I like that. Well, Garcia, your insight is really thought provoking. I'm going to digest that. That's a really interesting take. And I'm going to keep that fresh in my mind.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm ready to do that deep dive of your
Yes.
untold story. I hope you are too.
I am excited. I am so excited. I'm a huge fan and I'm ready. Yes.
Amazing. I also am super eager. Okay. Well, then, here we go.
Yeah.
Garcia, give us the newspaper headline of how you would title your untold story. What would it say?
Loaded question, but I love it. My newspaper headline would definitely be something like the definition of success is the grace to make changes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so like in a snapshot style, what does that actually mean to you?
In a nutshell, what it really means is that when you're tied up in fear and you're tangled and you need to get out, what's the one thing that you use to help you to break free? And in that, you're using faith to create beauty, happiness, and success. And that's in a nutshell what it means to me. You're no longer paralyzed. You're moving on to greater things.
Mm, that's deep. That's really I can't even finish my sentence. I love it. Okay, so I'm a question asking geek. So now I want to ask you all kinds of questions, but first we need to tap into your untold story. So go ahead, tell us, what is your untold story all about?
My untold story is really about stepping out of fear and using my faith to get to what I need to. So to go a little bit more into it is many people see me from a childhood up until now as the perfect kid. I grew up in a home where I was very disciplined. I
Hmm.
was a great student and I had perfect attendance, never missed a day in school. Not to mention, I graduated with all these certificates and I continued throughout my career.
Hmm.
But throughout that, on the outside, I felt people thought that I was perfect, but really I wasn't. I was breaking on the inside. When I got married, after a few years in marriage, I became a little bit depressed. I started getting sick. I was so fearful. All these different imposter syndromes was just kicking in. I felt that I couldn't do anything
Hmm.
and fear just paralyzed me. I felt that on the outside, I wanted people to really see that I'm doing great. But on the inside, I was just breaking down and struggling to keep up with like,
All these societal expectations, right? Like the people, the
yes,
community. So you said that you were experiencing this in the early stages of your marriage?
yes.
And how long ago was that?
This has been 10 years, more
Okay.
than 10 years. Yes.
Okay. So a decade for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the imposter was in full-fledged. The way you felt on the inside was very different from the image on the outside.
Yeah, you felt just weak. You felt like you can't do it. You're giving up. It was just like you're settling for what you know. You know you can do better, but you're just to make everybody happy. You would say yes, yes, you wouldn't question it. You would just continue and just do good because you wanted to make sure that, you know, you're not disrespecting anyone and you don't feel like, okay, I'm this type of person. But it was a little bit hard because you felt as though I didn't know who I was. I didn't know Garcia.
Like you didn't have your own identity.
No.
You were so busy working to make sure you weren't disappointing anyone or disrespecting anyone. And the idea of having to show up perfect.
Yeah. And you always feel as though if I needed to go to the salon and look beautiful, that wasn't important. That wasn't important. What was important for me was the early stages in marriage was more like making sure that your husband have a good meal, making sure that he's on time for work, the kids would get dropped off to school. You would just go about your day-to-day job. You come home and you do the motherly duties. But also at some point you felt that afraid, like if I was to go and spend money, I felt afraid that, oh no, I'm going to spend too much and it's going to create an argument. Or I wanted to start a business. I was so afraid every time I would pitch my idea, it would create an argument. So you just felt settled that, okay, just hold back.
But who were you afraid of? I didn't mean to interrupt, but you're talking about afraid of spending money, afraid of starting the business. What was the fear about?
The biggest fear I had about everything that I went through was fear with my husband. Yes. I felt very fearful to do certain things because I didn't know the reaction that would come. And I wanted to make sure that he was happy, but at the same time I felt held back.
And so what kind of reactions did you experience that allowed you to feel that intense amount of fear?
So on a normal basis, everybody would get along great with the in-laws, and Garcia was doing all the duties of making sure the food is prepared for the children and the housework is taken care of. But when it came time to sitting down and taking a look at, okay, I've created a website, why don't you have a look and tell me how it looks? Or a question of, oh, I don't like the way this person spoke to me and your family. Can you tell them not to do that? Or I feel this way. It was always, I was shut down. I was shut down and I felt that being shut down, it was like, no, you're crazy. You don't know what you're saying. Something is wrong with you. And that really put me in a position where I felt like, is something really wrong with me? So I really didn't know who I was because I thought I had issues.
So you started to question yourself.
A lot.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So the reactions from him, from your husband, was prompted from you're just looking for an opinion. You wanted to discuss experiences and feelings. And you also wanted to explore possibility of new things. And you didn't know what to expect in terms of like if he would say something that would be demeaning or just shut you down or a put down. Is that what you mean by reactions?
Yes, absolutely. That's what I meant. And to add to that, it was more so I knew what I believed in. I believed in the fact that I had great things planned out, but I never got a second to breathe. And throughout the tears, all I was just saying is, help me a little bit so that I can accomplish something that makes me happy. And throughout the tears, it just felt like sometimes I would sit there and cry because I knew that I was good at payroll and I wanted to do payroll, but I would sit there and cry and wanting some sympathy and it didn't come. It was more like, what are you crying for? But I wanted to feel more. I wanted to feel,
Just support. Yeah. You didn't have the emotional support or receive any affection. When you say hug, I think of like affection, like putting a hand on your lap or giving you some kind of like eye contact.
Yes.
Were you hoping that someone was believing in you too?
Yes, and you're right. And you almost feel like at some point it's just like even if you see that I'm failing, just be that support. So all of these things played into my mental illness where I became depressed. I became
Mm,
depressed because I thought, "Oh, I'm no good. I can't do this." And all I'm doing is just being a mom of dropping the kids to school, making food. And I was getting no sleep. Like I would
mm-hmm,
get like 4 to 5 hours sleep because I'm up thinking about it. I'm up thinking about, am I worth it? Does he think this of me? So I was always worried about what he thinks.
mm-hmm,
And I
mm-hmm.
never really focus on what do I think about me?
Right.
And that created a lot of stress. And throughout that stress, I became sick. When I said I became sick, I went to the doctor one time. And when the
Mm-hmm,
doctor told me one of the sickness that I was going through, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die and I'm going to leave my children.
mm-hmm,
And I thought that was it for me. I had to turn to my faith. I started going to church more
mm-hmm,
often. I started like ministering into the word of God more and just finding that hope that says you can make it. You can do
mm-hmm.
it.
Right. So the support you weren't receiving at home, you were somehow able to find it in the voices of church.
Yes.
And I don't know, Garcia, are you comfortable to share when you say that you were sick, you received a diagnosis? Are you able to share any part of that?
Yes, absolutely. So
Mm,
I was healthy, but I realized that I was tired and just one day had a headache, went to the doctor. And when the doctor said, you have a brain aneurysm, of course,
oh,
I didn't even know what a brain aneurysm was. And I just thought, okay, brain. I heard the word brain and I thought, oh, great, I'm going to die. So all these
right.
things were playing through. And then I went to,
Worst case scenario,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. But then what made it even worse is I went to a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to the hospital, I was supposed to see like a specialist. And the nurse that checked me in said, oh, you're the girl that's here for the tumor. And I thought, oh, Jesus, what else is next? So I thought I was just walking dead at that point. So when I
Mm,
came home and I had to share the story with my husband that this is what the doctor said, he thought I was crazy. He thought I just listened to people. I just broke down in tears because I thought, you really don't understand. Like there's something wrong and I need to get help.
mm-hmm,
I need to get help through this. I felt shut down.
mm-hmm,
I became depressed and stressed.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine what that would have been like for you to,
Hmm.
you're feeling tired and having headaches and going to the doctor, reporting your symptoms, not knowing
Yeah,
that you're going to be told something completely different.
it hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt.
Was it shocking too?
Yeah, I was so shocked.
Right.
I was so shocked that it was one of those things. It's like, what do you do next? Like, who do you call? Like, the first thing I thought about is, who am I going to tell? How are people going to think of me? But then the worst part about it is that even through the diagnosis and I guess maybe my husband didn't understand
Mm-hmm.
what it meant or even try to find the time to look up what it meant and support me in that way. But I felt as if I had still had to do my daily chores. I call it chores because I felt like this was my life. So
Mm,
even though I was diagnosed with a brain aneurysm, going to doctor's appointment by myself, my husband complained that I didn't tell him things because I was very private. I became private because I felt that, when you're telling your story to someone and they don't show you that, okay, I want to help you. I want to show you that I can do anything to make you feel better. Like I didn't feel that
mm-hmm.
support. So I felt, okay, why am I telling this? I have to pull through it. And there are times when I drop the kids to school, I come home and I would just start crying because I thought, what am I going to tell my kids if they don't see me? Like, they might not see me tomorrow. What am I going to tell them
Right.
that I have this? So at some point, I really couldn't express that to my children. I thought, I don't want to hurt them. I don't want them to know. So
Mm-hmm.
it was just hurtful inside. I felt pain. I just felt like I didn't want to be around anymore. It was just like, what's the point?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you kept some of that process to yourself, going to appointments on your own and maybe not sharing so much with your husband about those things, it just sounds like to me like you were trying to protect yourself when you saw your needs weren't being met. So you were no longer willing to expose yourself in ways to be vulnerable in a way that was going to affect you and bring on more emotional pain because you were already at your max toll. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you were feeling helpless at one point.
I felt helpless and I kept it away from my family. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the things is that because having a husband and children, and I have brothers and a mother that they look up to you. So they didn't see what was going on. I think, to be quite honest, when my mother, for example, when she really knew what I was going through is when I
Mm-hmm.
wrote my book, Blessed by God, Broken by Life. That's
Mm-hmm.
when my mother really said, "Oh, I didn't realize that you were in so much pain." But I felt that I had no choice. It felt like there was no one that could fix that pain. And I felt as though my belief became stronger. I thought, okay, the only person that I felt that could fix it was God.
Mm-hmm.
If I turn to him and I tell him, God, I surrender, this is it. If you can't fix it, no one else can.
Mm-hmm.
That gave me hope. That gave me strength to fight for the things that I wanted.
Yeah. And so tell me more about how you were affected, Garcia, having gone through this journey of, dealing with that intense level of fear and not having supports and being in this health crisis. Were there other things that you were affected by before you got to that point of finding peace with church?
So I want to say that I felt that I was losing a lot of weight.
Mm,
I couldn't really eat. So I'm never a fan of sweet items, but
right.
I felt that when I was eating, it was just for the sake of, oh, you need to eat something today. But I didn't eat it and enjoy, like you sitting down and it's like, wow, I'm enjoying this plate of curry goat. Like I
Right.
was not enjoying it.
There was no flavor.
None.
Yeah, like you didn't enjoy flavor or your taste buds were not ignited, like that nothing was happening there.
Yeah. And then sometimes too, I felt that when I would go to the grocery store, I almost felt like, okay, you need to make sure that you don't spend too much. And if you spend too much, you have to make sure that you buy something for everyone in the household. For example, if I like pomegranate and
Mm-hmm.
I know pomegranate is so expensive,
Mm-hmm.
I know that I wanted it and I know that I wanted to have like six of the pomegranate,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't buy six because I felt as though if I would buy six of those, it would create so much problem. So I
Mm-hmm.
would just buy one and then I would make sure that I share it. But there are times where it's just like, okay, do I really want to share it because I love this so much? But I had to give in and said, you know what? Maybe it's better I give more and
Mm-hmm.
just I don't take any. That's kind of like how I was viewing things.
Right. So you're not deserving. Yeah, I have to give it all.
I felt insecure too. I was very insecure. I was feeling like a lot of self doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I worried a lot about doing something and if I'm going to do it right,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's going to create an argument, or if it's going to make it. It was just a lot of insecurities. And what I was feeling at home, it was actually going into the workplace. So when I was working my full-time job, I literally could feel that when I go to work, it was more like, okay, I know I rushed out of the house and I didn't comb my hair. I know this person is talking about me. They may have not been talking about me, but I
Mm-hmm.
felt as though they think my pants is ugly. They think
Mm-hmm.
I'm too skinny. They think I look depressed. All these things would
So
come
you
over
had
me.
these assumptions
Yeah.
about feeling judged by others.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And did you ever check it out with people to see if that's what they were actually thinking, or you just stayed with the stories?
I stayed with the story for a long time and I felt very afraid, which goes back into fear. Like it felt like I was paralyzed. It was like I was afraid
Mm-hmm.
to go. There are times where I've had to attend family function with my spouse, and there are times where I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go, but I had to go to make my spouse happy. But when I do go, I felt as though they were talking about me,
Mm-hmm.
or, they would say something like I could feel it, but I couldn't prove it that, okay, they said exactly this, but I could
Mm-hmm.
feel the tension and I felt, Anxiety took over. I was on medication for anxiety. So I had a very good doctor, and
Mm-hmm.
the first time he prescribed a medication, I don't even remember the name of it, but when he prescribed it, he said to me I needed to take it 3 times a day. I went home and I researched it and I thought, why am I going to take this? Like, what is it going to do for me? And then I got a hold of myself and I said, okay, the first time I took one, I went back and I told my doctor, I said, first of all, if I was to take this medication, all it's going to do is just going to numb my pain for a little bit. But what about long-term effect? Like, how is that going to affect me? Like, am I always going to be on medication? So
Mm-hmm.
I had to choose. I said, I didn't want to be on medication. I want to live and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to find something. And the only thing that I could really find was to use my faith and to stay in the word. That's the only thing that benefited me at the time.
Right. Okay. And I want to ask if you're comfortable to share with everything that you've shared so far in terms of what you've been through, how this story unfolds, with fear really being the driver's seat in the story. A lot of it is circled around the marriage that you're in. What is it like to be in this marriage with this kind of intensity where you're feeling misunderstood and getting a sense of like that feeling of being devalued and dismissed? What is that like for you?
It is very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It's like most times you have to apply knowledge in the terms of you're just being obedient. You're being obedient. It's like you give so much love, like you give 100% love and you feel like, okay, I'm only getting back maybe 50%. Most people will say to me all the time, you are so blessed. You have this. And I always feel like, okay, I know when you love me. I know if someone tells me that they love me and the things that I want to feel,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel it to say that, yes, you're at 100%, but I look at it as being obedient and just showing love and hoping that that person will realize that you love them so much that they will come to terms that the issue may not be with me, but the issue may be with my partner. At the end of the day, I feel as though love plays a huge factor and support, but
Mm-hmm.
I've learned now to kind of, it's not like be comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's how I put it, because
Mm-hmm.
if it's making me uncomfortable, I realize now I'm going to just acknowledge it. I'm basically confronting my fears in the
Mm-hmm.
marriage and
Mm-hmm.
saying, I'm understanding that this is very natural. And we all know fear is natural.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm acknowledging it and I'm saying I'm proceeding anyways. I know I'm going to do a company. I know I'm going to go back to school. I know I'm going to do all these great things. So it's just really about acknowledging it, but I have to build that wall with myself and say, no, there's no breaking down. There's just going forward.
Mm. So you're building all your own emotional muscles.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like for you, you've created a new script for yourself where it sounds like you're decided to be in this marriage. You're choosing the marriage. You're factual about what it's offering you, your position in it, and you're still finding a way to connect with yourself and focus on yourself.
Yes, and I think the beauty of it is when you feel tangled, like there is no place to go. I've learned over the last 10 years through business management consulting and through peers that you can't change someone, but you can change yourself. And when I started my business, that's when I decided to be really aggressive. I said, I cannot change my partner.
No.
I can't change anyone, but I'm going to make a change for me. And when
Mm-hmm.
I decided to make that change, I felt great about it because guess what? I started my company. I started a volunteer clinic. I started writing my book. When I look at it, I said, okay, marriage is something that I don't believe in divorce. And if it comes to the test that you have to get a divorce, that's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But anytime you think about divorce, it affects the children. It affects the
Mm-hmm.
children in a lot of ways. And if I felt that I've given you the opportunity to make the change and you don't, I'm not going to sit there and worry about it. Like today, I don't sit and think about, okay, are you going to change this? Are you going to make this different? Are you going to treat me this way? I now focus on me.
Yeah, you're focusing on yourself.
Yeah. I go out and I do all the things that I want to do. If I want to go and have a coffee with a friend, I don't feel afraid of, oh, I need to be back at this time or I'm going to have a big argument. I've learned to block things out and said, I'm happy. I'm happy because I'm going out, I'm interacting, I'm doing stuff, and my children are happy and my husband is somewhat happy. But at the end of the day, it's my happiness.
Right. So you're doing you. Garcia's doing Garcia, right?
Yes.
This is beautiful. Okay, so Garcia, when people come to see me for therapy, individuals, they tend to be in like one of three places. Sometimes people are getting started. They know they need therapy or they're ready for therapy and everything is tangled and they want to sort it out. Then there are some people who are in the thick of things and they really need help beyond sorting. They're ready to like navigate and do some deep dives and peel back and delayer to their core. And some people are looking back, making sense of things from the past or getting closure or sealing unfinished business so that they can move forward. For yourself, what part of the journey would you say that you're in? Would you say that you're getting started, in the middle, looking back?
I don't think that I'm looking back. I am just moving on. I'm not at the getting started stage. I'm almost at the finish line. That's how I look at in terms of things, because I felt you tried everything. This is the step forwards.
So it's like you're in the middle, reaching that finish line. There's light at the end of the tunnel. You can see it.
Yes.
Okay.
And it feels beautiful.
That's lovely. So, I mean, if that's where you're at, then help me understand this part. Tell me this part. For you to have gotten where you have on this path, where you're not quite in the middle, you've surpassed the middle, but you're not quite at the looking back, like you're getting close. What do you want to remember about the process of your healing journey?
I think what I really want to remember is risks, taking risks. I was so afraid of taking risks, but now when you look back at it, it's like, hey, take those risks. And the people I surround myself with, I have to make sure, like prior, if I'm looking back at the people that I was surrounded with, it was very toxic. It was very demotivating. Like, you're not going anywhere. Now I'm seeing, okay, now prepare myself to look forward, surround myself with all the wonderful people that are going to help me get to the next stage.
I love it. Those are really good messages. Those are really good reminders for yourself to remember, like, this part of the process was the most healing for me. It's important for me to remind myself to take risks. In taking risks constantly, maybe not constantly, but that you are able to take risks as they come up and say, hey, those risks got me to great places and they weren't as bad as I actually thought they would be, right? It really resonates for me when you shared about surrounding yourself with people who would not be toxic and in a way, those that propel you forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like that message.
Yeah. And the thing to remember is that progress really involves risk, right? That's how I look at it.
Yes.
I say this to my children and I say it to my own self, is that there's no way you can steal like second base if you could keep your foot on the first base, right? How I get through it, I said, you got to take a leap of faith. You also have to prepare yourself while you're waiting for better. If you're waiting for $1 million to hit your account, it's not just going to come. You have to go through the process and you have to prepare yourself. So the struggle that I'm going through, it doesn't matter if the marriage is rocky. I've acknowledged it because it hurt me. And for 10 years, I felt the pain. I felt the hurt. But now I'm looking back and saying, okay, that was me. I now know who I am. And I'm moving on. I'm surrounding myself with people that listen, the stuff that I was missing. So someone who will listen, even if I just want to sit and talk for 10 minutes, or someone who's willing to sit down and have a coffee with me. So I'm preparing and I'm surrounding myself and I'm feeling the love that I didn't feel prior.
So you're taking it all in.
Yeah.
I love that you're able to take in the love. And I really like your strong positioning, like the reminder that you give yourself of like, I know where I am, I know where I've come from, and I'm aware of who and what I'm surrounded by. I love it.
Yeah. And the great thing too is having to write this book give me great relief, because when I was thinking of doing the book, the first thing that came to mind is, oh, I think these people can't be around or be alive if I'm going to write about them. But
Hmm.
I really got a hold of myself, and then realized that, this is my truth. This is
Hmm.
how I'm healing. This is
Right.
the things that broke me
Hmm.
is what helped me.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? What broke me helped me.
Yes.
It's almost like you have another headline there.
Yes.
Okay. And on that note, you've given us glimpses of having those symptoms of depression and having medication for anxiety and giving us a lot of detail about the kind of self doubt stories that were in your mind and that inner critic at its full fledged and how much emotional pain you were in. And I know that all of those things are part of how your mental health was affected. Are you able to share more about how your mental health was affected during this time?
Well, I would really say lack of sleep. Like emotionally, I was drained.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, I was hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was in a depression mode, and I just needed to get out.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it didn't matter what I do, how I do it. I was just depressed, and I didn't know why. There were times where I would just break down and cry, and you just get up sometimes and you just start crying, and you're like, you don't know what you're crying for. You just know that emotionally I'm hurting. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go through physical abuse, but like, I would say when we were kids and growing up, we would say, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I said, whoever came
Mm.
up with that, I'm sorry, because words do hurt.
Right. My mom used to say that to me all the time. I really didn't like that. I didn't really like that phrase at all. But then I thought, oh, I must be wrong. I guess that's what you're supposed to do. But it sounds like what you're sharing is the lack of sleep, emotionally drained, all
Yeah.
of the emotional pain, the depression mode, everything you described. And with the amount of crying and how the tears were showing up for you, it sounds like your emotions were just dysregulated. They were just all over the place. Your body couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah. You felt just off balance. You felt like sometimes
Hmm.
you're just literally walking around and you're like, okay, why am I doing this? Like, why am I just standing there? And literally you're starting to forget things. It felt
Hmm.
like I knew I cared,
Hmm.
but I was just in that moment where it's like, does it matter anymore? Like, I'm no good. I can't do this. I was giving up. I was giving up, and I thought, what am I going to live for? And then
Right.
a lot of things came to mind, the kids, having something you're passionate about. And that really motivated me.
Mm-hmm. So you went from like that autopilot mode, really unsure about what you were feeling at times, and then you were able to ignite with things that mattered.
Yes. And it's not easy. The things that matter to me, I never ignored my children throughout all the challenges that I've gone through. Like, I've always said that, whatever I do, I'm going to fight for them. And I live on prayer. So when I got through to where I am now, owning a business and a volunteer clinic, I relied on prayer, and prayer got me through in the morning. Prayer got me through in the nighttime. And one thing I have to say is I go to a Pentecostal church where when I was going through challenges, I noticed that I could go into that church, whether someone's there or not, and I could cry. I could feel like I could talk to someone.
Like permission to release,
Yes,
right? Without shame or without judgment.
exactly.
That's beautiful
Hmm.
and so important.
So important. And it helps you. It helps stay motivated.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's so important.
Hmm.
And it sounds like even when you were sharing some things earlier in our conversation, like you were really afraid to make decisions. And it took you quite a bit of momentum to step out and do what you love that you're doing now and move away from those fears of I won't be good enough.
Yes.
You really worked a process to come away from that.
Oh, I can't even tell you. So it took like 10 years of
Yeah.
feeling no good, depressed. I was so afraid to make decisions. I thought, no, don't do this. You can't do this. And, after 10 years, you realize it's like, what are you doing? And when I got a hold of myself, I said, why did I go to school for and have all these certification? I'm supposed to be in this type of career. And I struggled. Like when I started with my business, I thought I had financial struggles in the past where I wanted to understand how a paycheck works. And for me, it was like I'm starting my business and I'm able to explain to someone how this whole paycheck thing work and how we take care of you so that, you can run your own business.
I'm really glad that while 10 years is a long time, right? Where you kind of were in this process of limiting yourself.
Yeah.
But it's so relieving to hear that you were then able to question that part of yourself and say, okay, Garcia, what are we doing here? Let's look at the facts. What can we change? What can we do differently? How can I pivot? I want to do something different. Giving yourself a reality check. I went to school. I know things. I'm passionate
Yeah.
about stuff. I believe in things. I have things to offer. I have good things that I want to do. I want to go and explore. I love that you had that moment. I love it.
Yeah. And it goes back to taking a lot of risks, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you're preparing yourself for you to move forward. It's like I had to get over, medications, and I had a brain aneurysm. It was hard in the first couple of years that I had it because I thought I didn't know what it was. And I tried changing all my diets and everything. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to believe. And I believe and I had faith. And one day I just went to the doctor, and the doctor, it just kept talking and then follow up on an appointment. And when I did find out and hear, like 5 minutes I spent with the doctor, and he says, you don't have an aneurysm. I said, what are you talking about? Like I had to get a hold of my mind and said, no, I'm confused. He said, I just had this last week. But then when he told me, I thought, this is my time now. Like I've relied on God and I've asked him, I said, show me, teach
Mm-hmm.
me what I need to know. And it just changed my whole perspective.
Right.
It's like, wow, I don't have this aneurysm. It's gone. And how did it disappear? Didn't even matter.
It doesn't matter. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not here
Yeah.
anymore. We've
Yeah.
bypassed it. Let's move forward.
Yes.
Amazing.
It's exciting.
Well, it's exciting too, right? It's relieving that it's ended
Yeah.
and there's things to move forward to. So tell me, what is your key message to the listeners of the show? Garcia, what do you want people to know?
Wow. There's so much to put through this. So what I really want people to know is, if you're a couple and you're going through things, it's good to talk about it. It's good to offer support. And if you're going through situations where it's like a privacy issues, these things can get resolved. It
Mm-hmm.
can get resolved, and listening. It's so important to listen to one another, whether you don't care or not. But it's just good to know. And I really want people to understand that it's great to experience your fear
Mm-hmm.
and just take action anyway. You may be living in fear,
Mm-hmm.
and it may paralyze you, it may hold you down, but you still have to take action. You have to proceed. You
Mm-hmm.
have to take risks, and you just have to keep fighting. So even when you're hurting, even when that foot says, I can't drive, you have to force it. Lift up the foot, put it in on the gas pedal, and drive,
Mm-hmm.
because there's light at the end of the tunnel, but it doesn't come easy. You have to work through it. You have to work through the storm. You have to work through the rain, and you have to work through the mean words and the things that people are going to say about you, but it's doable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so important. It's a really strong message, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want the light to come, unless you work through the storm or even the meanness of the world,
Yeah.
right? You have to put in the work, but it does happen.
Yeah, you have to be willing to feel the fear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There was I think there was a card or something that someone had shared with me, and there was something inside the card and it said, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, and what I tend to understand is that some people will do anything to avoid the uncomfortable feeling of
Oh
fear.
yeah, we've got like expert avoiders, right? Like we've got like master avoiders. They are like masterminds in avoiding. I work with many
It's
of them.
yeah, but at the end of the day, you run a bigger risk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Decide to
you
take
know.
the risk. And something that Dare to Heal says all the time, one of our things is something you said before is get comfortably uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Right. And you said, I started to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Those were your words. So I was like, yeah, that's right. That's definitely what it is, you can
yeah,
do it in small bits. No one says you have to shock your system, but the willingness, you use the word willingness. So if you're willing to tap in, it's just bit by bit.
it's a process. And what I would say, for anyone listening is that know that the good stuff, it requires taking risks,
Hmm.
and it's going to be a process. Take your time and pull through it.
Yeah. And the good stuff will take time and risk.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right. I'm curious. Tell me, what was that game changing inspiration that's close to you that reflects your untold story? So, was there like a quote or a book, an event, or a person or something that really connected with you?
A couple of things that connected with me. There's a quote, it's a scripture. It says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not yet seen. And for me, that helps me because even when I was writing the book, so the book is the something that really helps me. It's a motivation because it really pulls me back to see that where I'm trying to go, even though I'm broken, I have to turn those broken situations into something that I know is going to be better. Like I know if I got hurt, I know I have to turn that around, that, okay, I moved past the hurt. And also going through business management consulting
Hmm.
also helped me realize that my true potentials, that I was just wasting time not pursuing what I was good at and feeling passionate about what I really wanted to do. So the business management consultant played a huge part in my role. And
Hmm.
I think having the book and releasing my truth and feeling comfortable that
Yeah.
now I can do it really played a huge role.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. So, who are we giving a shout out today to? What's a cause or organization that's been impactful to you on your journey that you want to give a shout out to?
The organization that has been very impactful to me is Refuge City Pentecostal Church. My pastor, Pastor Brown, he has been a huge support when I was going through struggles, when I was hurting and crying. He never turned me away from the church. He never said anything to make me feel like I wasn't welcome,
Hmm.
even when people may have seen that I didn't have a place there.
Hmm.
Everyone made me feel welcome. And that was a place for me where I felt that I can go there any time of the day and I can talk to anyone and I can just feel comfortable.
Wow. That's really important that you had that safe space. I'm really glad that you had that during those really tough moments.
Yeah.
Hmm. So let's talk about how people can connect with you if they would like to. I have your handles for Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and your Twitter. Did we get them all?
Yes, you got it all in my website.
Perfect. So then they're all going to be on the show notes page where we feature you, Garcia. So guess what, Garcia? You just dared yourself to share. Congratulations.
Amazing. Thank you. Oh my God. This was
Yes,
a pleasure.
it's been such a lovely conversation, Garcia. I would just like to take a moment, if you don't mind, to
Yeah.
express my gratitude for the story that you've shared today. Vulnerability, authenticity is what comes up for me. Diving into speaking about core fears, where fear led you, how you led yourself out of fear, and the mess of feeling hurt, feeling pain, and feeling broken, and that you navigated through all of that. I am truly humbled by your perspective on life, and I find your take on life to be a breath of fresh air. Your delayering today, I know, I know will definitely inspire the delayering in a listener from today's episode. Maybe not even just a listener, maybe any listener, but whomever's listening to your episode today, I know that they will truly be inspired to delayer just like you did today. I am grateful to have been able to hear and witness your story. So thank you for the deep conversation and for all the daring and sharing.
And thank you so much for just allowing me to share and just having this comfortable conversation where there's no fear and it's just a lot of motivation, feeling love, feeling blessed. I am so grateful for this opportunity to sit here and talk to you. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I really do appreciate you taking that time to speak to me.
Oh, it's been so lovely and honoring, and I'm the one who really feels blessed here too. So once again, Garcia, thank you for being part of Dare to Share Your Untold Story and helping to be a voice in breaking down the barriers of mental stigma.
Thank you.
To all of our listeners, if you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and you want to be part of breaking down barriers of mental stigma, I invite you to go wherever you are listening to the episode and hit subscribe. Leave us a comment or a review of the episode and maybe how you relate to it. To learn more about what we offer, visit www.daretoheal.co. And if you are feeling ready and brave to share, please submit your story by visiting www.daretoshare.co. Thanks for joining in.